Now
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:06 this day after Christmas. Thanks for tuning in here on Boxing Day, the 26th day of December. We are here. We are live. We are getting it done for you on O'Connor and Company, and we're not doing it alone. Coming up at 6:35, Cal Thomas will be joining us. At 7:35, Lauren Apple. She wrote a review of this Mary movie on Netflix, which reveals it to be not exactly as biblical as you may want it to be. 8:05, Victoria Coates, Heritage Foundation, her new book about the battle for the Jewish state. That's all coming up. It's Larry O'Connor. And Merry Christmas. Greetings to you, Patrice Onwuka.
And to you as well, Larry. Merry Christmas.
One thing that we're looking forward to is, I think once we get through the holidays, maybe it'll take till New Year's or a little bit into the new year and maybe even the inauguration of Donald Trump, but you're going to see even further fracturing over on the left and with the Democrats. Most specifically, anyone who is involved in the Biden White House. You're going to see two things emerge, Patrice. You're going to see people coming out of the closet and revealing exactly how. Wait, let me be clear, because we're talking about Democrats here. I meant politically coming out and revealing the truth about what happened behind the scenes with Joe Biden, with his dwindling health, with his dwindling mental abilities and cognitive abilities. Obviously, they're all going to start telling the truth, finally, about what they've been covering up and hiding. The greatest political scandal of our lifetimes, having this frankly disabled, mentally and intellectually disabled individual in the highest position in the land. They all lied about it. They lied about it right up until they couldn't lie about it anymore. Yes. But you're also going to hear people talking about how bad Kamala Harris was as a candidate. Right now, everyone who works on the campaign, they've all been singing off the same page, which is she ran the most perfect campaign. She was brilliant. She was great. It's like, oh yeah, if she ran the most perfect campaign, she would have won. Okay, clearly.
No, they're claiming racism and misogyny. We know.
Yeah, right. That's all they got. No, you're going to hear the truth coming forward very quickly. A lot of the people who are speaking out right now are people who, frankly, are still on the payroll, and it's unseemly, frankly, if you're the campaign manager or anything, to sort of throw your client under the bus like that. No, there will be other people within the party. There will be people, as we just heard with Lindy Lee, who is a fundraiser, who is speaking out right now for her own reasons, saying that it was awful, she was awful, and the way they ran the campaign was awful. And here's another individual. His name is Sean O'Brien. Of course, you know him as the president of the Teamsters.
Yes.
Inclined, I think, in the very fabric of the Teamsters, the DNA of the leadership of Teamsters. They're as Andrew Breitbart used to say, the factory setting coming out of the box is a Democrat. That's who you are when you're a leader of a major organized labor movement like the Teamsters. So Sean O'Brien and the Teamsters were all poised to give the nomination to Kamala Harris. The big problem that leadership has was the membership hated her. Yes. The membership loved Trump, and so they were sort of vexed. They hadn't given the nomination yet, and so now what does it look like behind the scenes as Kamala Harris's people are trying to woo them and get that endorsement? Here's where Sean O'Brien starts spilling the tea, as it were. Cut 4 here, Sean O'Brien on the Tucker Carlson show.
So we give 16 questions 2 weeks in advance, the same 16 questions to each candidate. So, RFK answered all 16 questions. Probably most of them didn't answer them how we would like them to answer them, but they answered them. Joe Biden came in and he answered 5 of them. Donald Trump answered all 16. And then when Biden drops out of the race, but prior to Biden dropping out of the race, he's in the race around June or May. One of my vice presidents, a woman named Joan Corey out of my local, she sits on our general executive board, was at an event with Vice President Harris. And, they're going through the line to get the picture, and Joan introduces herself to Vice President Harris, says, "I'm Joan Corey. I'm on the general executive board for the Teamsters." She goes, "Teamsters? You better get on board. You better get on board. Better get on board soon."
Can you believe this?
Can you? So Vice President Kamala Harris, even before she had been put on the ticket, right?
Yeah.
Is telling the one of the head honchos at the Teamsters, you better get on board or
Right.
else. That is a level of arrogance that I think they try to hide with her, but she's arrogant.
You
My
better get on
goodness.
board, you say to the. I mean, actually, let's wrap this up because there's another anecdote that's amazing. But
Yeah.
here, cut 5 here.
Says it to my vice
To
president.
her face?
To her face. So she comes back. We have the meeting the next day.
Damn.
And she tells me
I
this.
thought I was arrogant. That's
tell-
really arrogant.
So she tells me this. So I call up Marty Walsh. He wasn't the Secretary of Labor, but, he was pushing hard for us to make the endorsement. I'm like, let me ask you a question, Marty. Excuse my French. Who does this lady think she is? Like, if I want to support from any organization, I am not going to point my finger in someone's face and say, you better get on board or else. But that's the attitude of this whole party.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
It is the attitude of the whole party. Now, there's a little bit more to this, but just that anecdote right there. That here's Kamala
That
Harris.
tells
She's
you
doing an
everything.
event, greeting people, and she sees the vice president of the Teamsters, and all she has to say is, "You better get on board, or else."
Or else.
And guess what? They didn't get on board, and look what happened.
Well, and the team, I mean, that's the kind of language that a lot of union bosses use.
Well, yeah,
they're
that's
it's
true.
like thuggish language.
The strong arm tactics.
You're going to strong arm them. The fact is, though, even before we saw the results of the election, barely half of union workers supported President Kamala Harris, or
Right.
even President Trump, President Biden, I guess at the time. So they needed to actually sweet talk, not strong arm the unions to support them, and that never happened. But you know what? It pairs nicely with what we're talking about with Lindy Lee. If you don't stay on the reservation, the Democratic reservation, they will do everything and anything to make your life miserable.
Well, and let me tell you, because a lot of people, a big theme amongst Republicans is, our leaders are weak, Mike Johnson and Thune and all that stuff. Well, why can't we have a leader like Nancy Pelosi? Well, this is how they operate.
This is how they operate.
You want to have a strong leader as your Speaker of the House. You want Nancy Pelosi to get everybody to fall in line. This is how they do it. Because they act like mafia bosses, and they threaten, and they cajole,
Thugs.
and so I mean, listen, you can decide what you'd like. I frankly like strong leadership too, but I also don't like my politicians to act like thugs. All right, cut 6, a little bit more of this story. It's fat, and again, this is just we're scratching the surface. It's going to be the books that are going to get written. It's going to be glorious. Here, listen.
So fast forward, she finally agrees to come after we were putting pressure on her, basically, because I was doing interviews all over the place saying, we haven't got invited to the DNC. They haven't accepted our invitation for her to come to a roundtable. So she comes to the roundtable. Same format, same questions. Rank and file members are asking her questions just like they asked every other candidate. And they were trying to negotiate with us. She only wants to answer 3 questions. We're like, there's 16 questions here. So she answers 3 of them. And on the 4th question, one of her operatives or one of her staff slips a note in front of me. This will be the last question. And it was 20 minutes earlier than the time that it was going to end.
Come on.
100%. And so, you're there trying to get our support. And her declaration on the way out was, I'm going to win with you or without you.
She thought that or said it out loud?
She said it out loud.
That's insane.
So
That's crazy behavior, actually, if you think about it.
it was insane behavior, which at that point in time, I knew she was going to lose.
Funny, I do, but isn't that amazing? She only goes in, she only answers 3 questions. She leaves 20 minutes early. This is what everyone knew about Kamala Harris. By the way, the media also knew this about Kamala Harris. And as she's leaving, she tells the Teamsters leadership, "Hey, I'm going to win this with or without you." Well, of course they didn't give her the endorsement, and she lost without them as well.
Well, what's interesting is I think we've assumed that a lot of this was just her handlers, her staff, her communications people trying to shelter her. No, I think this everything that happened is 100% Kamala Harris. She's the one who probably told her staff, slip him that message. I don't want to be here any longer than this. I think she actually orchestrated a lot of this because she's arrogant, because she feels like she doesn't need to bow to anyone, but they need to bow to her. I think there's an element of manipulation here. Whether her mental state that's a whole other story. But this is all her, and there's no reason why she should be in leadership.
It is. Wait, no. Shh. We want the Democrats to nominate her. She is a transcendent political figure. And frankly, let me just say this.
Strategically,
if the Democrats do not give Kamala Harris the nomination for 2028 right now by acclamation, no need for a primary process, no need for debates. If they don't give her the nomination, they are sexist and they are racist. That's what I say about the Democrats right now. It is 6. Let's just keep this going. 6:17. Patrice Onwuka, have you introduced your brood of boys to one of the greatest Christmas boy movies ever, Home Alone?
Absolutely. We just watched it on Christmas Eve.
So
a
lot of families would do that, right? A lot of families make sure that they sit around the television, watch a great, family movie like Home Alone. Never mind the fact that, in retrospect, when you look at it, you think that these parents should really be arrested and never be allowed to be in charge of children. How do you actually free parents? But it's a great premise. But people watching it nowadays, I don't know if this occurred to you as you were watching it, because the movie was made in 1990, 91, I want to say. Looking back all these decades later, people are watching
90.
the movie and thinking to themselves, how rich are these people?
The McAllisters, yes.
The McAllisters' home in suburban Chicago was big enough to sleep 15 people, if you remember
yes.
Because the extended family were there, and the brother and the cousins, because they were leaving for Paris the next day. They ordered 10 pizzas the night before they all flew to Paris. And that's when they left Macaulay Culkin at home. He was home alone, and they were in Paris, right? Well, on CNBC, they took this up, and they decided, all right, let's figure it out in real terms. How much were these people making for this? See, to me, they lived in a lovely home, but it was like an upper middle class house. I never occurred to me watching the movie that these guys were millionaires.
Yes,
right at the time.
I didn't. But when I watched it again, and before I even saw this article, I was picking up things that I never noticed before. Like the father was wearing a very expensive Burberry wool coat. I now realize it now because I'm looking at the lining. I'm like, wait, that's a Burberry coat. That's a very nice coat. He's with a matching Burberry scarf. You go Burberry's website, you'll see what I'm talking about when it comes to the price.
They did a deep dive here. That room, it's a 5-bedroom, 6-bath Winnetka, Illinois home. Right now, it's listed for $5.25 million. Now, at the time, they said that the home was probably more around $1 million, 1990.
Still,
$1 million home in 1990. Yeah, but yeah, exactly. Also, the fact that it's like, oh yeah, they're all going to Paris. Hold on a minute here, and the brother, the uncle, the dad's brother, is the one who was paying for the trip to Paris. The airfare for the trip, because they show them in first class, the parents.
Yes, that's right. Exactly.
$55,000 would have been just the airfare for that family of 15.
Oh, my goodness.
Traveling the way they did to Paris. And by the way, because it was during the Christmas season, which, the first class tickets, $8,500 a piece.
Yes.
Now, they could have gotten them, if everyone had flown main cabin, they still could have gotten to Paris for about $25,000. Who does this? Who travels like that?
Who has $25,000 laying around? This doesn't even consider how much they spent in Paris, because I believe they stayed at like a big, massive suite to hold everybody in some rich, lavish Paris hotel.
Where did all this money
they're
come
loaded.
from?
They're obviously loaded.
It's
obviously loaded.
I don't know why it sort of takes the edge off of the relatability of the movie when you realize these guys are like, what's the word? Oligarchs? Are they political oligarchs?
They might be oligarchs.
Yeah. Also, by the way, they drove what appeared to be a relatively modest car. It was a 1990 Buick Electra Estate wagon. And a Buick LeSabre. They don't make Buicks like that anymore, literally.
No, they don't.
But those types of cars would be valued about $40,000 each, frankly. So, that the cost of gas for a big boat like that is very expensive, though. Finally, though, this is my favorite part about how CNBC did this. After analyzing all of the slips and falls and accidents that the robbers had to endure as Kevin McAllister was protecting his home, it would be smart for the McAllisters to get an umbrella insurance policy for liability and any damages that they occurred. Also, because they're prone to leave their child alone without any sort of supervision, they probably should invest in some proper estate planning and a good will, just in case.
Oh, man. There's so many things I also noted. Finances aside, his mom, the mother, is trying to get back to Chicago, finds herself, she's been flying through a bunch of different airports. She now finds herself with a traveling band of tuba players, was it? And who is the actor, the comedian who is leading the band? Was it John Candy? I was thinking it was John Candy. Okay, yeah, John Candy. It's like, oh, well, you can come with me, a bunch of 15 guys in a van. We're just going to we could drop you off on our way in Chicago. What woman in her right mind is going to jump in a van with a bunch of 15 huge guys that she doesn't know who says that they're going to give her a lift to Chicago? Who would do this?
You're right. It's a great thing to point out. My favorite part of this movie, and really any movie of that era, whether it's Back to the Future or Ferris Bueller's Day Off or anything, is how whenever these characters get into a complicated situation like leaving their son at home while you're in Paris, the lack of cell phones. The lack of cell phones, mobile phones, smartphones, the lack of internet, the inability to just reach into your pocket and pull up information and solve a problem. It cannot be overstated. You watch these movies, it's like, just use your phone. Wow. Oh, that's right. You don't have a phone. You can't get yourself out of this. And it's
because they would have been able to use the Ring camera, seeing the shady blue van backing up into their garage. Can you imagine right now what you would do if somebody tried to do this to your home, and even how you would even forget your child, and then you'd see them running around the house because the sensors are going off the hook.
And if you have a mansion worth $5 million like the McAllister had, you definitely would have had a better security system than all of the booby traps that Kevin set up. Well, I hope we're all very pleased that we've ruined Home Alone for you now forever. Best part about Home Alone 2 Lost in New York, though, of course, is the incredible cameo from future President Donald Trump. He really does deserve an Oscar for that one. It's 6:25. It is 6:37. It's O'Connor and Company this day after Christmas, Boxing Day, whatever you want to call it. Second day of Hanukkah, by the way, is also a good descriptor, as well as all of the December time holidays are converging at once, and we'll love it because we're all about being festive here on O'Connor and Company. Coming up later this morning at 7:35, Lauren Apple. She's a writer at Daily Wire. She's got a review of the Mary movie on Netflix. If you think it's going to be a glorious tribute to the Mother of God, well, you're wrong. 805 Victoria Codes Heritage Foundation on her new book, The Battle for the Jewish State. It's Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka. Merry Christmas to you, Patrice.
Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah.
And Merry Christmas to our next guest. Always great to talk to our friend Cal Thomas. Cal, good morning and Merry Christmas. Hope you had a great one yesterday.
Well, thank you. Yes, indeed. And hi, Patrice and Larry. In the words of Hello, Dolly, it's so nice to have you back where you belong.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Now, it's interesting to me. When you think Hello, Dolly, do you think Barbara Streisand or do you think Carol Channing?
Well, I saw Carol Channing 3 times in it, and she became a friend, and I think Streisand did a good job in it with Walter Matthau, but obviously the brand is Carol Channing.
Always
no
be
question.
Carol Channing.
And I saw Bette Midler. Bette Midler did it too, and she was actually quite good.
You know who I saw? So I missed Bette in that revival. That was a great revival, by the way. That was a few years ago. I saw Bette's replacement, Bernadette Peters, and she was brilliant as Dolly Levi.
I saw Bernadette Peters in Annie Get Your Gun.
Oh.
And I also, who also played that revival was Reba McEntire in New York. And I went backstage afterwards, and, being a stage door Johnny, I said, Reba, nobody gets a review like you do coming from Nashville, Tennessee to New York City and get such an incredible review. And she goes, well, thank you very much. Yeah, it was a fun role to play. So I wrote a column about it, and I got this very nice note from her. So it was a great show. I think Carol Channing. She played over 1,000 performances, maybe more.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the really important stuff.
Yes,
Larry.
I know. I'm sorry. We digress. But you know,
okay.
whenever you throw a musical theater thing at me, you know I'm going to go down that lane. Let's talk
Well, I
about
do.
your column today because you talk. I don't think enough attention has been paid to what Joe Biden has done here on the way out the door with these grants of clemency for death row inmates.
Well, I think it's a double standard. Of course, he and the entire administration and virtually every Democrat are pro-choice up to the moment of birth for killing babies. But if you murder somebody, an already born individual, and commit a federal crime, then what was it, 37 out of
37 out of
39?
40 who were
Yeah,
waiting on
out of
death
40
row.
who are going to get their sentences commuted. Now, as I said in the column, when you deprive somebody of liberty, and these people are getting life without parole, who have taken lives, this is not equal justice. Depriving someone of liberty who has killed somebody else, it's the Old Testament eye for an eye. You don't value the human life by just locking somebody up for life after they have killed somebody else.
Yeah, and listen, I know that people have strongly held beliefs about this, and it gets complicated when he starts quoting his Catholic faith, which I share with him. But to say that your Catholic faith compels you to give clemency to these murderers on death row, but it doesn't compel you to have a humane and pro-life position on abortion. You're absolutely right to point that out. But also, explain this to me, Cal. If this is your compelling moral and religious faith that is driving you to give clemency, then why leave 3 of these people still on death row? It's like either the death penalty is wrong for everyone or it's not.
Well, that's right. And among those who are being left on death row is the guy who shot up the Bible study at the Mother Emanuel Church in South Carolina. Now, Biden says that his exceptions are going to be for terrorism and hate crimes. Well, if this wasn't a hate crime when you're shooting black people in a Bible study in a church in South Carolina, then please tell me what is. Now, as you know, Larry, the Catholic Church is consistent on this. They're against capital punishment. The Pope recently issued a statement about, doing away with it. Biden, in his last foreign trip, is going to meet with the Pope. And I wonder if the Pope is going to admonish him for not going all the way on this. I have written that I'd be happy to make a trade. Okay, I'll come out against the death penalty if all you liberals will come out against abortion. But they won't do that, of course.
That's right.
Cal, looking ahead to the Trump administration, what's possible? We've seen him in his Christmas post on Truth lay out some of the areas that he plans on hitting, particularly Greenland, the Panama Canal, and maybe even making Canada the 51st state. Do Americans take this? I mean, these are all ideas that were floated in Trump 1.0. Do you feel like I think he's going to go for it in Trump 2.0? What will Americans think? Are they going to say, no, this is too far, or are they going to say, yeah, these are actually really good reasons why we should pursue these policies?
Well, this is not the Louisiana Purchase when you talk about Greenland. I don't think Denmark is going to give it up. The leaders in Denmark have already said they won't, but who knows? Trump has shown the ability to surprise an awful lot of people. What is not surprising at all is the New York Times and the Washington Post and the rest of the media already planting the seeds, claiming that Trump will not be able to do virtually anything that he's promised. And look for the stories when the deportations begin of crying women holding little babies, and we're going to throw grandma out of the assisted living center and people starving to death. We got the same thing with the Clinton Gingrich welfare reform measure. They said all this stuff then, and when people found out that the gravy train was not stopping at their mailbox anymore, they went out and got jobs. They didn't starve to death.
Cal Thomas, though, Cal and I are both scheduled to be on the Media Research Center cruise next September, where we'll be seeing the fjords of Norway. Maybe if we can get this transaction done in time, they could add Greenland to the itinerary as well.
Yeah, that would be fun. I haven't been to Greenland, but I'm sure Trump will build a hotel, and we'll all be staying there
And
together.
a golf course. Don't forget the golf course.
And a golf course. That's right. Somebody asked me if I play golf. I said, no, I have enough frustration in my life.
Yeah, you have to talk to me every week. Cal, we will talk to you next year. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, that'd be fun. All right. Take care.
Thank you, Cal.
It's 6:40.
Happy New Year. So, Larry.
Yes, Patrice.
There is a new trend. Maybe some of our listeners out there were doing it just yesterday over the season. It's called Treezempic.
Treezempic.
Or pine, what is it here? Pine jarrow. Treezempic or pine jarrow.
Please explain yourself.
All right, so we know about Ozempic and Mounjaro.
That's the brand name for semaglutides, which is a appetite suppressant that has been very successful for people wanting to curb their
Lose
diabetes and such. Yes.
Well, apparently Christmas trees have been on the same thing. Forget dieting trees. Skinny tall trees are the rage this Christmas season. Apparently, Americans are now trying to downsize, or not just their waistlines, but actually the size of their Christmas trees. And so they've been opting for slimmer trees, some of which are taller, some of which are shorter, but in general, not fat, with branches sticking out, taking up a lot of space in the living room and the family room, but very slender and very petite. It is a trend, and maybe it's going to be sticking around for the next years to come.
Is this possibly because the cost of Christmas trees has skyrocketed? So it's like, we're not spending that kind of money for that big a tree. We'll get this Charlie Brown action over here.
It could be that. It could also be that a lot of people are moving into smaller spaces. So particularly younger people, younger couples, they don't have the space for the 9-foot, the 6-foot, the 7-foot tree anymore. They want 4-foot trees or 6-foot trees, and they want slimmer trees that are not blocking the view of the television.
So there's no actual pharmaceutical that is affecting the growth of these trees on purpose.
No,
These are
people
just
are
opting for this.
for.
Now, are you a real tree household, or are you a fake tree household?
Artificial tree all the way. I'm not going to use fake. It's a real artificial tree. It's just
wait. What do you work for MSNBC? It's a real artificial tree.
It's a real artificial tree.
Well, no, I didn't think it was a hologram. Thank you very much, but it's still not a real tree. It doesn't have sap.
It did not
grow in the ground. Does your tree have sap? Thank you. All right. Well, fine.
No, it did not grow in the ground, nor does it have an owl or some other tree life living in it, like a lot of people who get their trees at home.
They bring the tree home, and then suddenly
bring the tree home, and then there's something there in there.
That's some good critter news right there.
We opened up our tree and we decorated it ourselves. I love it. And we put it back in a box in a couple of weeks.
Tree. What are you talking about? Opened up your tree. like an accordion. It folds out. If your tree has hinges, it's not real, okay? It's fine.
It's real to me.
You can use artificial if you'd like. Now, do you do that for aesthetic purposes because you want the tree to just look so full and perfect every time? Or do you do it for the mess because you don't want to clean up the needles?
It's practical, yeah. You don't have to worry about the dried out tree. Every time you sneeze upstairs, the tree doesn't shed like half of its pine needles, the sap. Yeah, there's so many good reasons not to have a real tree.
But the smell of a real tree in your home is so amazing.
You could get a diffuser with a pine scent. I mean, it is not that hard.
You were so obviously a child of the Caribbean. When you were, because you moved here when you were little, and you lived in the Northeast. You lived in New England. Did your family also have an artificial tree that whole time?
1 year we got a real tree, and lesson learned. No, we're not going to do that ever again. With the 1 year we got a real tree, we realized we didn't know that you had to water the tree, so it got dry very quickly, and then the pine needles ended everywhere.
You had a Christmas fire hazard. That's exciting.
We did. Very good. Exactly. So now we have artificial trees, and we love it.
All right, well, good for you. To me, if you're going to go to the trouble of having a Christmas tree in your home, you should get a real one.
Now, next year, are you going to go for an Ozempic tree or a pine jarrow tree? Or are you're going to go for a fat tree? Are you going to fat shame the tree?
That is freaking tree. Because here's what's really happening with the skinny trees. This is a result of Bidenomics and inflation. This is why it is. People are doing this because they can't afford otherwise. But we're going to make the good times roll, and we're going to make Christmas trees fat again next year. 6:52.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.